Welcome to Hobby Clubhouse with a review of the Bandai High-Grade Build Fighters 1144 Gundam M91. This was a Gundam featured in the Build Fighters comic Gundam Build Divers Amazing Ready, used by Julian Mackenzie, who you'll better remember as the guy in the actual animation who used the red F91. And in the comic, he gets a proper MS build of its own, the Gundam M91. And there's a lot of cool stuff to see, so let's get down to business. The Gundam M91 was a Bandai exclusive and sent out in Japan in March 2018, and it sold for a price of 1,944 yen. It's quite sought after nowadays, and it can be quite pricey from resellers. The monochrome Bandai box measures 30 by 19 by 6.5 centimeters, and it doesn't contain any extra information on the sides of the box. Inside the box, we get the M91 spread across 12 runners, with 2 of them being for polycaps and no clear beam parts. We get a big sheet of foil stickers with this giant gold black one for the lance, these small triangle details for the back of each of the legs, these red ones here for the top of the wings, this green one for the camera on the back of the head, and then this bigger one for the front of the head. Then we have these big ones to go on each of the sides of the Vespers, 2 for each cannon. And we have 2 small green ones here for the camera sensors. This green one here goes onto the beam rifle, these orange V's go onto the top of the knees, and then these other orange ones go onto the top of the same area. Then we get an eye sticker for the masked face, and then we get one more for the face with an open mask. These red ones go onto the bottom section of the skirt armor, with 4 of them in total, and then we have 2 more orange ones that go onto the side of that same area. And we're not done yet. These 2 big orange ones with a bit of vent details go onto each side. These red ones go onto the booster gauntlet on the left arm. Then this white detail wraps onto the tip of the pointy chest. And we get a gold and black detail for the top of the chest. These black ones go nearby into the vents on each side. And lastly, these 2 orange ones go onto the bottom of each of the shoulders. Now, I won't get all dramatic about having all these stickers. The M91 really isn't a low-effort cash grab like some other Bandai releases are, and Bandai kits just don't have the sales volume to warrant crazy color separation, which requires extra costs, like separate runners that need all new molds, which are crazy expensive. We'd all rather have everything perfectly colored in plastic, but I'd like to be the voice of reason here and say that there are real-world constraints for Bandai releases. I'd go out on a limb to say that this is a reasonable balance between the many new parts that we're gonna look at, and then having such a nice design to fit within their really tight development budget. Moving along, next we have the instructions, which are nicely done in full color, as many of these Build Fighters AR kits are. Mine here is a little bit water damaged like the box, so don't mind all the wrinkles on it. We get some in-universe info on the M91 and Julian here, which you can pause and read in a little more detail if you like. On the back, we have details on all the weapons and all the parts of the M91, man, there really is quite a lot. And all these shots work with the coloring guide that's on the very bottom. The inner pages are for assembly instructions, as is the entire black and white side, as you'd expect. And after about 90 minutes or so, we have the M91 here, and I want to go back to my opinion that this is a great design. I think the kit deserves praise for transforming the pre-existing F91 kit into this striking double V silhouette on the back with this crazy lance. You can see bits of the F91 through all the crazy new parts, but it's clearly its own coherent character. Next to the original F91, which is partially painted here, the M91's changes aren't random and they look exciting. I'm sure there's more than a few of you watching this that wants to hold this model up close and study it, and that's a mark of an inspired design. So let's have a look at all those new parts, starting with the head, which of course has this crazy blade antenna reaching way outwards to each side. And actually the entire front of the head is a new sculpt with all the small little details added around the front of the helmet. And the face itself is entirely new. There's a new mask that has no slits on it, and the chin has the red rim around it. And if one face wasn't enough, we get an entirely new open face mask here with an original design that calls to mind the Phantoms' design from Crossbone Gundam. Next, we have the new armor on the top of the chest here that now protrudes outwards, but it still matches the contours of the vent parts really nicely. The engraving on it is interesting, and it doesn't overdo things. Continuing the great design, we have the sides of the torso here that now have two small little wings pointing out the back. And this gives us a beautiful layered design where the bigger wings flank these small red ones. Like I said, it's a coherent design. The shoulders are completely new and they match the new triangular geometry of the M91. The bits that are orange would have broken up all this red here with some interesting highlights, but sadly they're stickers. Going further down, we have an entirely new set of armor on the front and on the side, and I quite like this new red crest there, how it wraps around the front. We'll look at the Vespers on the side skirts separately in a little moment, and further down we have these new big kneecaps with the red color making it look like a later addition that's added on top of the old knees, and it still retains the old knees' overall shape. All the way down, we have a new ankle armor with a neat little cutaway that breaks up the monotony, and we have the feet here that's molded in a really striking wine red that's used nowhere else on the kit. So here's one more go around the entire design side by side with the F91 to give you a clearer idea of all the changes that we just went through. Okay, well, appearances are all good, but let's look at some functioning gimmicks starting with the wings here. They can swivel up and down along a single axis, and you can rotate them along their peg as well. And actually, they're attached onto their original connections that are used for the Vespers, so you can additionally swing the entire wing along the backside like this. And of course, the wings open up, and they go quite wide. It is a little hollow on the inside, and builders will no doubt want to fill all this in and add some surprising details that will be revealed when the wings open up. And now we can talk about the Vespers and their rather ingenious new placement. So they mount onto these simple looking T-shaped side skirts here, and at first glance they look primitive and underwhelming, but there's more to that than what they seem. So you can rotate these forwards and backwards along their peg, and this actually helps orientate the Vespers further back and allows them to be in their firing positions, and look at that, they can be gripped by the hands. You really wouldn't think the Vespers retain their full functionality, but hey, here we are, and that's amazing. One more thing we can do with the Vespers is to bring down the wings on the back here using the hinge on their mounts. From this downward position, we can open the wings. And that bottom section actually has a gun barrel on it, and that functions as an additional Vesper. I know, don't think too hard about it, just go with it. This way, we can have the M91 with 4 Vespers deployed in the burst mode, which is a bit of an odd concept to be honest, but it's a nice little extra I suppose. And then we have the boost gauntlet here, and okay, it doesn't have any functioning parts, but it's still a neat little addition. It replaces the old shield generator, so we don't get a clear beam part for this kit, but I like the 3 set of thrusters and the vents around this assembly. Now what's not so good is that the long bit up there gets in the way of the hands quite a bit when you move it, so this is one of the places where the looks got a bit out of hand. And next is the star of the show, the M-Lance. So elephant in the room, the bake surface here with the fancy engraving is really nice and it looks absolutely stunning, but it is equally shocking how white it all is. That big sticker has no hope of matching this complex geometry, so it really needs some paint to look proper. But otherwise, you can't help but be impressed how they retrofitted the F91's beam launcher into this ridiculous lance weapon. If it weren't from Build Fighters, it'd be pretty silly, but here it's excused. Side by side with the original beam launcher, we can see that all they really did was replace the gray parts with new pieces, and then the entire weapon has been transformed. The handle in the middle here can swing around a little bit, and the top of the lance can actually turn a bit so the engravings can be on the side if you like. The bottom handle is static and it doesn't move. And thanks to the great articulation, the M91 has no problem holding the lance and striking an impressive and extreme pose. It's shocking just how well this whole thing works when it's actually just hacked together from a bazooka, and this crazy weapon completes the look of the M91. And the lance still works with the original mount here, where you pull off this little tab on the back skirt, and then you place this entire part onto the spot. And then you place the tab back onto it. And the bulky lance somehow manages to fit in place. And this is actually an important function I think, because with it, we can do this where the M91 fires its Vespers, and where's the lance supposed to go? Right, there should be a way to store it like this, and now it makes a whole lot more sense. But we also get the original beam rifle from the F91, and it's entirely the same thing and nothing has been changed. And in case you didn't know, the rifle actually has a hidden gimmick where the front handle can actually be cut here, and then the handle will be able to swing side to side. And lastly, we do get the beam saber handles, but they're more like leftovers from the F91 kit because the M91 doesn't have green beams. But these are here if you want to donate some beams to them and use them. As for the hands, we get the same ones from the F91 with the closed fist right here that we've been looking at so far, and then we get a pair of trigger finger hands. The closed hands are in line with what we usually get with the HG line with a square hole, and they're bespoke to the F91 with the hand cover having a bit of panel details on it. The trigger finger is a little bit different from what we usually get, and there's a gap between the index finger and the rest of the grip. You can better see how this works when we have it in place here with the beam rifle. That little gap is just enough for the ring guard to fit in, and it looks nice and snug. Onto the articulation, starting from the top, the head looks up a little bit, and downwards quite a bit more. The head can rotate all the way around without too much trouble. The shoulders can be adjusted on their ball joint, and they can swing outwards a bit over 90 degrees. The arms can swing well, but the shoulder armor hits the wings on the back a little bit, and you kinda have to fudge it a bit, and you'll still be able to pose it just fine. The biceps allow a full rotation of the arms. The elbows bend until the armor hits one another. The hands rotate on their ball joint, and you can turn them around a full circle. We don't get much of a forward bend on the waist, but we do get a bit more in the other direction, and it turns side to side, but not really a whole lot. The front skirts flip upwards this much, and the side skirts can flip outwards a little bit. The back skirt is fixed and it doesn't move. The side skirts may not move much, but the legs still swing outwards a whole lot. They can also rotate really freely along the thighs, and they kick upwards past 90 degrees. And backwards not a whole lot. The knee bend is good, but you'd think it could manage a little more until the armor is touched. The feet swings upwards this much, and then backwards this much, and they swing side to side this much. And in case you didn't know from the F91, the thrusters on the back of the legs open up like this, and they can each be adjusted individually. Like I mentioned before, the articulation is very good, and the weapons like the Lance and the Vespers really are demanding towards the kit, but the M91 is quite up to the challenge. There is such a wide range for you to design the perfect pose to your liking, and there's really very little to complain about here. For size comparisons, here's the lower end benchmark, the entry grade RX-78. And then, here's the higher end benchmark, the high grade new Gundam. The M91 cheats a little bit here, and the head makes it look like it's about as tall as the RX-78, but it's really a bit shorter. If you count the wings, then of course it is a little bit taller, but even with that, it's really got nothing on the really tall new Gundam. With all that said, here's the Hobby Clubhouse 3-point verdict on the Bandai high-grade Build Fighters 1144 Gundam M91. Number 1. It's a masterclass in kit recycling. Now, many kits made under the Build Fighters or Build Divers line recycle old kits, and sometimes are head scratchers, like the M91's companion here, the Tall Strike Gundam Glitter. Jeez, what kind of a name is that? Because sure, they look different, but they can look kinda random and uninspired and sometimes quite forced. I'll have a review of the Strike Gundam 2 here at a later date, so do keep an eye out for that. But just take one look at the M91 here and nothing looks out of place. You don't get a giant bag of extra parts, though there are a couple of them, and there's probably not a single new part that doesn't add something interesting or fun to the kit, and that really deserves big praises. In number 2, it has a lot of stickers. I know in the beginning I said this kit was never realistically gonna have complex color separation, and it's not gonna go away no matter how much we yell and complain about it. But in the end, we do have a kit here with a lot of stickers, and it's not much fun. Now, I think it looks nice enough even if you don't use stickers, so not using most of them is a fine option here. but of course, a bit of painting will improve the kit quite a lot. And that's what I'm getting at here. The sticker thing is something you're gonna have to think your way around on this kit, unfortunately. And number 3, it's stuck in purgatory. Bandai only made one run of this kit on Bandai, and I was lucky enough to have gotten one back then. It's unfortunate, but if you really love this kit and you want to get one, there's just no reasonable way other than to shell out crazy money. Bandai has been reissuing Universal Century Bandai kits from time to time in recent years, but the Build Fighter ones have never had that luck. So everything good about this kit ends up being a cruel joke to fans since you really can't enjoy this lovely design, and that's such a big shame. So that's a review of the Gundam M91, and this was originally going to be a stock review to be uploaded at a later date, but I didn't think Mecha Gaikatsu would just randomly review a Bandai kit from 2018, so I decided maybe it's a good chance to give everyone a second opinion, so here we are. Thank you so much for watching. Come look us up on social media with updates on upcoming videos and sneak peeks at future projects, links are in the description below. Or hang out here some more with one of these other videos. But before you go, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to be notified of new videos from Hobby Clubhouse, and I'll see you next time.